There's an article by Steve McKee over at Daily Signal that caught my eye. I started reading it. I started getting really excited. Okay, I really did start getting a little bit of a tingle up my leg because thought he's on to it. He's about to, and then he missed it. He didn't miss it by much. Don't get me wrong. I mean, this is an objective. It's very subjective. But the title of the article is "This really is the most important election of our lifetime. Here's why." And I was like, okay. I mean, I know why. I think most of you actually know why. But I haven't heard anybody in conservative media, a little bit in alternative media, and a handful of very strong hosts have said something similar or something at least close to the truth. But I thought that, okay, we're finally going to get it. Here's a I would say, mainstream conservative site at the Daily Signal. And it looks like they're going to get it. And they got close. He got so close, but he missed it. But we're going to go through, and again, this isn't. It's not like, oh my gosh, these guy's an idiot. No, I'm sure he's probably pretty smart, and he does nail some very good and important reasons why this is the most important election of our lifetimes, arguably the most important election in the history of humanity. But we'll get to that here in a second. First, let's go through his list. I'll get to what I believe to be the unspoken or the lightly spoken most important reason, but let's go through his list because it is solid. And I'm going to read his opening first and foremost because I want to see if you guys catch on to why I started thinking that he was gonna nail it on the head. We've heard it so often it's become a cliche. This is the most important election of our lifetime, but that doesn't mean it's not true. I believe it really is for one overarching reason. This is the only election we can affect. The outcomes of 2020 and 2016 and all previous campaigns are now in the rearview mirror. Nothing can be done about them. Not so regarding what happens on November 5th. And at this point, by the way, I'm thinking, okay, he's going there. It's really going to happen. The people we choose to next lead our nation are up to us, and that makes this like any future election. And I was like, oh crap, he's not going to get there. He's not going there. And I was right, but we'll get there. The most important election of our lifetime. That said, the stakes are so high this time, and I can think of nearly a dozen more reasons. I'm going to just buzz through his reasons because they're good. Again, I don't disagree with any of them. But let's buzz through them. Top one. Its effects may be more consequential than ever. Okay, so that's kind of a nothing burger, but still, it's true. He's looking at Woodrow Wilson, 1912, Franklin Roosevelt, 1932, Reagan in 80. Those are all important ones. But and as he states, whether good or ill, we understand the hands we've been dealt in the past. In a world where we're being told that borders are bad, killing babies is good, and men should be allowed in women's locker rooms, the paradigm that we crystallize under the next administration could be even more game-changing. Okay, fair. Constitution is under attack more than ever. Wholeheartedly agree. That's the truth. I don't think I need to elaborate. Y'all get to see it and live it pretty much every single day. Next, Congress is weaker than ever, which, look, I get it. Congress's primary role should be oversight to prevent a tyrannical executive branch. I agree. But I don't want to give them necessarily more power to do so. I would rather just take down the power of the administrative state. But I understand the sentiment here. What he's saying is that Congress should be taking on more responsibility, take away the administrative state's powers, reduce the bureaucratic state to next to nothing. Okay, that'd be great. But then you're going to have an overpowered Congress, and that's a whole other set of problems. Next, the courts are assailed more than ever. Yes, but we also have judicial overreach. So to some extent, I'll disagree a little bit there too. What he's saying, though, and let's just read through this one. The one branch of government operating somewhat as it should is the recently reconstituted Supreme Court, which is slowly reining in decades of abusive legislation from the bench. A proper separation of powers, however, is unacceptable to the left, and if it gets its way, it will expand and pack the court, removing the Constitution's last line of defense. And we must prevent that from happening. So he is correct there. When he didn't word it right. The courts are more assailed than ever. What he should say is the Supreme Court is on the verge of losing its autonomy, because right now the way that people, the left especially, and some people on the right too, but the left especially, they're like, oh, that shouldn't be a lifetime appointment. Oh, they shouldn't have so much power. Oh, it shouldn't be just 9. Why can't we just look? If there were 6, let's say there were 5 left wing justices and 1 neutral justice and three right wing justices currently, they wouldn't care. So this isn't about the court. This is about getting their way, and right now they can't get their way with the current. We'll call about 3.5, really. I would say, no, not three. So I guess to do the math right, you got two constitutional conservatives, and really we don't really want to call them conservatives. We'll just call them originalists. They're both getting old. We've got three that are, I would say, lukewarm originalists. Maybe a little off from time to time. You've got Chief Justice Roberts, who's, I mean, he leans left. They say he's a conservative. He's not. And then you got the three radicals, right? It is fine. And I would say that, by the way, if it was the other way around, if it was 5, 1, and 3 instead of 3, 1, and 5, I would still say that it's fine. Leave it the way it is, and let's just fight to win the executive branch, where we can name better justices. Anyway, that's not what they want, and he is right there. So, next, today's voters are more civically ignorant than ever. Duh, very clear there. Next, our nation's debt is more gargantuan than ever. And here's people say that, and that's true. I'm not disagreeing with it. But so far, if I have one criticism of Trump, it's that he hasn't talked. I remember before he was talking about reducing the debt. He hasn't really mentioned that much. Not at all. Not on the campaign trail. He's talked about reining in spending to some extent, but not even really that. I mean, he is not a fiscal conservative. No, I don't care what anybody says. He's not a fiscal conservative. He's more conservative. I mean, you could say that he's definitely more conservative than Kamala or Joe Biden or Obama or anybody like that, sure. But you can't call him a fiscal conservative. Still going to reduce the debt. But again, that's not something that's like, wow, it would be nice if we could, but since we can't, well, we're still going to support Trump. Our borders next. Our borders are more porous than ever. Very true, and we'll get to that. Assimilation is weaker than ever. Again, very true. As a matter of fact, assimilation is being considered somehow racist, which is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. No other nation is like that. Okay, no other nation has ever been like that. There's never been a nation that considers itself to be in sin just by its very existence. There's no other nation that has not demanded assimilation. Hey, fine, you want to come live here? Great, do so. But you're going to play by our rules. You're going to learn our culture. You want to diversify and add some culture to ours? Great. But don't not assimilate. You got to assimilate. Next. Drugs are deadlier than ever. Yes, big deal, but that's not necessarily an election issue because it's not like the left is there anymore. They were, you had some cities like Seattle and Portland. And they're like, oh yeah, legalize drugs, and I was like, whoa, this sucks, yeah, drugs are deadlier than ever, but that's not. It's an important issue. I don't want to downplay the issue itself. What I'm saying is the partisan repercussions on the issue are less, unless you tie it into the border. Then all of a sudden, of course, obviously the Trump side has a huge advantage there. Weapons of war are deadlier than ever. Very true. Well, let's read it just so that you guys understand why I'm kind of blowing it off. The world has always been a dangerous place, but the possibility of global destruction is fewer than 100 years old. Today, not only are we seeing frightening advances in conventional weaponry, like hypersonic missiles and deadly drones, but entirely new kinds of weaponry, such as directed energy and genetic weapons. We must continually enhance our ability to defend ourselves, and that's true. So I guess what he's saying is that, look, Trump is supportive of the military. Kamala is not. The Democrats have, as far as the Democrats are concerned, our military should just be a laboratory for wokeness and climate change attacks. That's it, and that makes them very dangerous. Last but not least on his list, the world is more dangerous than ever. There are hot wars raging in Europe and the Middle East, either of which could easily expand to engulf the region or the world. And while most of our adversaries are rational, what? Not wishing to die any more than we do. Okay, I still disagree. Some consider martyrdom an honor. We need a foreign policy with teeth that balances diplomacy with deterrence. That's a dozen reasons. And he's right. That is his dozen reasons. Now I'm going to explain the number one reason, the biggest reason, okay, by far. All those are important, okay, very important. But why is this particular election the most important of our lifetimes? Some people have expressed it, and many very strong conservative voices in right leaning as well as alternative media have said that if we lose this election, this will be the last election, and they're right. The part where I slightly disagree, they say we will have permanent Democrat rule. I disagree. We won't have permanent Democrat rule. We will have permanent globalist rule. We will be handing this nation over to the globalists. Open borders. I mean, we can't afford another 6 months of open borders, let alone another 4 years. We cannot afford to have corporate media out there saying, well, we're only talking about a handful of apartment complexes that have been taken over by a transnational gang. I mean, the lunacy, the idiocy, the globalism is so rampant already that we won't survive another 4 years of it. We won't have another free and fair election again. Illegal aliens will be voting in the 2028 election if we even make it to 2028 as a nation. It's not just about Democrats winning. It's about the globalists winning. People like Mitch McConnell, I know that he's allegedly not running again, but people like Mitch McConnell, they don't have to fear. Okay, it's not like, it's just going to be, 100 Democrat senators and we're going to have 75 years consecutive Democrats in the White House. That's not how it's going to work. There will be uniparty swamp members that win offices, but there's still going to be globalists. They're still going to be beholden to the United Nations, the World Economic Forum, the Council for Inclusive Capitalism, the World Health Organization. They're still going to hand over our sovereignty. We will not survive. We will not survive. I cannot stress this enough. To say that this will establish permanent Democrat rule is downplaying the reality of our predicament. It's basically underselling the true nature of what we're faced with. And that is pure globalism that will engulf and eventually, and when I say eventually, I'm not talking about decades, I'm talking about years, possibly even months, until the specter of globalism is all that we see. You look up in the sky, you look down on the ground, you look around you, you look at the military, at the police, you look at everything, and it's all going to be about globalism. And they're going to shield it, of course, by claiming that it's about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and it's about climate change, and it's about all these other woke policies that are all just smoke screens for the end reality, which is to take the United States of America and to chop it down as far as possible to where the best case scenario we have is that we are part of one of the 10 regional powers that the Club of Rome and Henry Kissinger and Klaus Schwab have dreamed about since the 70s at the very least, maybe before then. They want us to either be part of that 10, and again, that's the best case scenario for us in their version of the world, or if they crush us so bad that we just disappear altogether, just poof, we're gone. The United States is just non-existent. They're okay with that too, as long as they get their 10 regional powers that are controlled by one centralized power. And of course, if you read the book of Revelation, you'll see that their plans, they being the globalists, and the book of Revelation are very well aligned. Okay, I'm not saying they're not aligned as far as their goals, their intentions, or anything like that. What I'm saying is they're aligned as far as, and I don't know if they did it on purpose, but I mean, if they didn't, then that's spooky, and we're probably toast. If they did, then we keep fighting, and maybe we get a reprieve. Maybe we're a decade off, 100 years off, a millennium off. Maybe we're not there yet. I think we might be in the end times. I think we probably are in the end times. But that doesn't mean we don't keep fighting the good fight. And right now, that good fight means between now and Election Day, and probably after Election Day, we expose the truth. We do our best to unveil any massive widespread voter fraud that's going to be taking place that we can affect, whether that's watching polls, getting the word out, getting voters to the polls, making sure that every friend, relative, co-worker, Bob at the convenience store, get them to vote. This is it. This is the most important election of our lifetime. Because if we lose this one, then we won't have another one that we can correct the issue. This is our last chance to either get back on track or to say goodbye to the United States of America. Regardless of where you saw that clip, the best place to watch any of my stuff is to subscribe to me on Rumble, jdrucker.com/rumble. That's jdrucker.com/rumble.